Hello, I'd like to show you how to use Google Sheets to not only make a graph, but actually have Sheets do the calculations and straighten the line so that you can figure out the exact equation of the line between and decide the relationships between two different variables. So I'm going to walk you through everything that you need to know. And I'm going to go ahead and start by pulling up the data. Okay, so you will get a sheet that has these four charts on it. And I'm just going to copy paste directly from the Google Doc, and I'm going to put that into Sheets. So when I open up Sheets, I'm going to try to go nice and slow so that you can see everything that I'm doing. So you want to open up Sheets in Google Drive and double click on that. And then it will ask you if you want to start a new spreadsheet or if you want to go to something else that you've worked on. Let's just start a new one. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it untitled for now. And I'm going to go to the very first two columns, A and B. That's where we're going to be doing all of our work in the spreadsheet. It's just in those two columns. Column A is for the variable that we are actually changing in the lab. So when we do our crater lab, this is going to be the size of our meteor, the speed of our meteor, whatever we're actually looking at and manipulating. And then column B is going to be the size of the crater, because that's dependent on our original variable. So that's going to be on the y-axis. Okay, but for now, I'm just going to copy paste over the data exactly how I have it. I'm going to get rid of that delete row. So all I did is just copy paste the data so that I can work with it and make my graph. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to highlight everything. So just click and drag. You see how everything's that kind of light blue color, and that means that it's highlighted, it's ready, you're ready to do something with that data. And then in the toolbar here, if you just go all the way over, kind of 3 from the right, it looks like there's a little bar graph there. It says insert chart. So if you just click on that, it will take a second and then it will load and it will show you your graph. And so you get to see kind of what your graph is doing. And over on the right, you'll get to change certain parts of the graph. One of the things that you'll need to do right away, and on mine it's automatic because I've been doing this for a while, but where it says chart type on the right, you want to switch that over to not a bar graph, not a line graph necessarily, because we actually want to see those data points, because a lot of times we will manipulate and maybe edit or take out a point. And so we need to know which point is off from our line. And so I want you to pick, it's called scatter charts. And you should just see dots, and that's the one that we want. So if you click on scatter chart, then you'll see kind of what I'm seeing. You can, if you're doing, for another class or something, you can switch this up however you want, but we're going to choose the scatter charts. So I see some points, and I also notice that it's going down right away, which is going to be kind of a red flag as to what I'm going to have to do to straighten this to figure out the relationship. It's not direct. It's not just going straight up. And so instead it's curving down. Okay, so this is basically all I need to do at this point is just kind of see where I'm at with this graph. And then I'm going to have you copy paste this into your lab when we actually do the crater lab. But for here, I'm just going to move on and I'm going to show you now how to straighten this graph. Okay, so I've got the points going down. So that tells me, because I only have 3 options, that I'm going to have to do 1 over the x. So I have a choice. I can either square the x, I could square the y, or I could do 1 over x. And you have a list of all the 3 possible graph shapes and what equations go with which graph, Okay, but for this one, this is, since it's curving down, it's a 1 over x sort of relationship. So the y-axis is actually not going to change. So I am going to make a whole new chart and a whole new graph, and I'm going to calculate using 1 over x so that I can have a nice straight line. And you'll see how this is all gonna play out here. So just kind of hang on with me here. Okay, so I'm going to copy paste since I'm not actually doing anything to the y. Remember, it's y equals 1 over x. So the y is staying put and it's staying unchanged. So I'm just going to copy paste everything that was in that y, the b column, carry that down. But now the x, it's not just planets, it's actually 1 over the planets. So where I have planets, remember we said it was 1 over the x. So that means I'm going to take everything that's in the x column and I'm going to do 1 over all those numbers. And then the nice thing with Sheets is Sheets can do all those calculations almost instantaneously. So here in the heading, instead of just typing in planet, I'm going to type 1 over planets because that's what I'm going to have to do. Okay, so now I need to actually tell Sheets to do 1 over all of those all those numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to be 1 over 1, 1 over 2, 1 over 3. Okay, so how you can actually put an equation and have Sheets calculate is to just hit the equal button. And if I hit the equal button, you'll see that pop up in that cell, that box right underneath the 1 over planets. Okay, and then I'm going to just type in 1 over because that's what I'm going to do. And then instead of typing in 1 or anything else, I'm just going to go up and I'm going to click on that that place where that information is located, which is in that cell right underneath planets in my original chart. And I'm just going to click on that, and you'll see what comes up is a little A2. And what that tells me is that Sheets is going to take the info that's in column A, row 2, and it is going to mathematically do whatever I'm telling it to do in that cell that's highlighted there. So I'm going to do 1 over A2, which means I'm going to take 1 over 1. And if I just hit enter, you'll see that it does do it mathematically. 1 over 1 is 1. Okay, so that one we could do in our head, but here's where Sheets really pays off. Because if I go back to where I had that original one, you see I went back to the cell that I was just working in. And you see that little square in the lower right. If you grab it, click on it, and drag it down, and then release it, you see kind of how it gets highlighted. I haven't released it yet. I'm going to release it now. Boom. It will take that formula and apply it to all the boxes below it. So there's 5 boxes below it in the original chart, and now it will, 4 boxes below it in the original chart. Now there's 4 boxes below it, but it's calculated all those values. So there you go. I've taken all the 1 overs, and then I have the original y unchanged y variable, and I'm going to just copy and make a new chart, and this is really going to be awesome. Check this out. I went ahead, it's scatter chart, and now you can see that it did straighten my graph. And now I have a straight line, and I know that that is the correct relationship, that it's a 1 over sort of thing. It's an inverse. We call it an inverse relationship. Okay, now there's a couple other things I want you to do to this before we hand this in, is I want you to put a best fit line in. So if you go over to the right where the chart editor is, and well, actually the easiest thing to do is just click on a point, any point in the graph, and this will automatically pop up some information on the right in the editor. And if you go down a little bit, scroll down, you'll see where it says format data point. And then below that, it says error bars, data labels, trend line. If you click on trend line, look what it does. It brings up a best fit line. And that's also, it's very important for kind of seeing what it should look like. And then if I go down a little bit below that, you'll see where it says label. It's actually 3 below that where it hits label, and now it says none. But if you go down to where it says use equation, you click on that, it will pop up the equation of the line. So now you can get the slope, you can get the y-intercept, all this helpful information for you to do calculations later. And then there's one other really helpful thing right below that, actually. Label, use equation on the right. There's a box that says show r squared. If you click on this, it will give you the statistical confidence in your data. So you know, like, if your data is actually representing what it's supposed to. In this case, a nice direct relationship. So the higher the R squared value, the highest you can get is 1, which would be 100% confidence, and it's 0.99, so it's 99%. So that's pretty good. And so there you go. Sometimes you have to adjust. You could click on a point. You could take out a point if you want to improve your data a little bit, fit it to what you think's going on there. But then you can copy paste this and put it into your lab. Okay, so now there's one other thing that you might do with this. Instead of one of our planets, let's say that the relationship was different. Let's say it was a top opening or side opening parabola. How do you straighten something like that? It's not a 1/, relationship anymore. It's a squared. It's an exponential kind of thing. So what you do, if I just kind of get rid of where I had the planets, let's say we had to square the x. Let me show you how to square the x real quick. So, okay, so now let's go back to planets. But now I'm going to square the planets because let's just say that that's the way the graph is looking. All right, so now to square it, you're going to use the caret button and the 2, just like you would in kind of lots of things. You do caret 2, and that says I'm going to square the planet. So then when I'm putting in the formula, you do kind of the same thing. You hit the equal sign first, and then go back to what you're going to square, which is, again, the planet's info there. And yeah, I click on it, one click, and you see A2 appears because it's ready to take that data and start calculating something. So now if I hit caret 2, okay, I'll leave that there for a second so you can see A2 caret 2. That tells the computer that I want to square it. And if I hit enter, it's going to square it. So again, 1 squared is 1. But I can go back to where I was just working in that box, click the point, drag it down, release it, and you see that it just took all those numbers 1 through 5 and squared them and adjusted my graph accordingly. So then I could highlight it and make a graph and all that. But the important thing is to use the caret 2 when you want to square something. And I could square the x. I could also go to the y, and I could square the y if that's the type of parabola that fit that equation. Okay, so that's just a little quick tutorial on how to linearize and straighten graphs and determine relationships in Google Sheets. Hopefully it was helpful.